This is Dr. Goodin with the third section of Educational Psychology and Motivational Theories. Obviously there are three sections to this particular section. First we're going to talk about cognitive and sociocognitive theories of motivation. Don't get scared by the big words. Cognitive means thought and socio means social. So we have regular thought and social thought, and how they have been used in theories that explain motivation. So I've done a lot of studying goals as well. Some of you who have had me in other courses know that I've studied a lot of medical students and how they've reacted to the changing healthcare environment, as well as nurses, physician assistants, and doctors of osteopathy. But they all have goals of becoming a medical doctor, or nurse or nurse practitioner, whatever it may be, DOPA. What the individual strives to accomplish is their goal. And then we have goal orientations. We have patterns of beliefs about our goals related to achievement in whatever situation we're in. Okay, so Alfred Montepart said, in life, the first thing you must do is decide what you really want. Weigh the costs and the results. Are the results worthy of the costs? And make up your mind completely and go after your goal with all your might. Of course, it doesn't always work that way. Sometimes there are obstacles, and sometimes there are things that really cannot be surpassed. And we must choose a different path. Sometimes that feels like failure, and sometimes it is a failure, but it leads to a success in a different area. Goal orientations are the main reasons why goal setting improves performance. Okay, our goal orientations direct our attention. They tell us, focus on this. They energize our efforts. They increase our persistence, and they promote the development of new knowledge and strategies. But you may be saying, I still don't know what a goal orientation is. It's how you see the goal. Do you see it as obtainable? Do you see it as close or far? Do you see it as small or large? These are just some characteristics that we might have in our goal orientations. Fostering productive achievement goals. We want to be smart. For lack of a better term, we want to, whenever we form a goal, we want that goal to be specific. So we know when we've accomplished it. Measurable, so we know when we've accomplished it. Attainable, so that we actually can get to it. Realistic, same reason. And timely. We don't want this to last forever. We need to have some conclusion in our lives. We need to have some closure in every goal that we search for. Some goals take longer than others. So as we look at goal orientations, we're going to see two main types sort of evolve in our, at least in what we're talking about. There's the mastery and task involved versus the performance and the ego involved. Okay. Now, what do you think these mean? Mastery and task means I want to master it. All right. So say you're taking an algebra class. Algebra is known to be one of those courses that makes or breaks students. And as they take it, especially in college, and as you have students, you will find they say, how do I get an A? You'll have students that say, that are comparing grades to their peers. These are performance or ego involved learners, sort of like extrinsically motivated. Other types of learners want, even if they get a C, and I've seen this said about, some people taking statistics. I got a C, but I feel like I learned a whole lot and I'm proud of it. I've They were seeking for mastery, not just to show that they're good, not just to puff up their ego, but to show that um, they really are getting the information. And we have that choice a lot as we're learning. There are ways to get around actually learning the material. And sometimes it's faster, and sometimes it's easier, and you can still get the same grade. But as we approach a goal, say it's a test, say it's biology, we have the choice of being mastery oriented or performance oriented. We can do it just to get that A and move on with our lives, or we can truly try to get the material and master the material, truly understand it. As we look at goals, we tend to look at them in two different ways, as approaching them or avoiding them. Okay, there's often goals placed before us, and think of it as a threat or a challenge. Um, and I got a big test coming up at the end of this course or at the end of the week. Does that scare you? Okay. Does it make you anxious? How much? Is it halfway on a scale from 1 to 10? Is it a 5 or is it a 10? If it's a 10, it may be debilitating. You may try to avoid it. It's a threat. But if you can keep it down to a 5 and say, you know what, I know this is part of the course. I know I need to study for this. I know I need to show that I have the skills that the teacher has taught me. I will approach it. I will accept it as a challenge. Challenge accepted, right? That's a TV reference. If you got it, good for you. I will approach this and I will head towards it. I'm obviously going to have a different attitude than someone that does not wish to be put in this situation. I would rather avoid it. I would rather pretend it's not there. I will study in the very last second. If I'm approaching the test, I see it as a challenge, I'm more likely to prepare for it. This would lead to procrastination, would it not? All right, now this is a lot of information. This is achievement goal theory. And it deals with what we just talked about. We may approach goals or avoid goals. Approach goals, the desire to look good and receive favorable judgments from others. Approach. Avoidance goal, desire to not look bad or receive unfavorable judgments, like avoid looking dumb or avoid misunderstanding. These could also be replaced. In this case, they're not, but challenge or threat. And then, is it a performance goal or is it a mastery goal? Performance goal, desire to demonstrate high ability and make a good impression. This is more like an intrinsically motivated goal, as ego involved. Or is it the desire to acquire additional knowledge or master new skills? I want to master the task at hand. If it's performance and approach, we're going to ask, what grade did you get? Is there cheating involved, copying, plagiarism? Because this, you just want to look good. You just want to demonstrate high ability and look good to other people, get favorable judgments. You're likely to cheat, copy, plagiarize. Choose the easiest possible option. This is possibly the worst quadrant. When it comes to performance and avoidance, this may be even worse, I'm not sure. But these people tend to drop off the map. Of course, we don't want to be on the performance side at all. But these people are going to not even show up. They don't want to look bad. And they need to perform highly. They don't want unfavorable judgments, but they they want to get a good grade, they're likely to not show up, to be late, to do things at the last minute. Why do they do things at the last minute? Well, then they can blame the fact that, well, I ran out of time. Okay? This procrastination protects the ego. Okay? Procrastination, and many of the things we do, protect the ego. Well, I had to miss a lot. That's why I didn't do well in the course. I don't want to look bad. I know I got a bad grade. Or maybe I still get a good grade, and then I'm in luck. But if I get a bad grade, I have an excuse. Okay? If it's an approach for a mastery goal, we're trying to understand the work, we're going to spend more time on the task and develop new skills. But if it's a mastery goal that we have avoidance towards, we're going to experience test anxiety, perfectionism. We're going to get over-involved in the process of learning it. So this is more healthy and this is more neurotic. Okay. So hopefully you can take into account that sort of mastery and avoidance versus performance avoidance, approach performance, and approach mastery. Okay, so this is the triadic reciprocal interaction. It's a very simple concept. The person affects the behavior affects the environment, and the environment thus comes back and affects the person again. Where does it start? It doesn't really matter. The environment affects the person, and so forth. You can think about it starting in any one of these places, the person being the start, the environment being the start, or the behavior being the start. This is called triadic reciprocal. Triadic meaning three parts. Reciprocal meaning they reciprocate onto each other an influence, and that interaction is them having a dynamic between them. What else matters? Feedback that we get. Feedback is something that is not controlled by the learner. It's controlled, well, sometimes we can give ourselves feedback, but largely we get these from mentors, teachers, trainers. And that matters. How the goal is framed. Is it framed as a threat or a challenge? And whether a person actually accepts the goal. And this could even be, think about that that idea of introjection, extrinsic versus intrinsic. Is it something that you've truly taken in? Is this something, as being a medical doctor, something your dad wanted you to do? Or is it something you want to do? Who are you doing it for? Goal acceptance. In therapy, this would be a big deal, the goal acceptance. Well, I want to get better. What if you're mandated by a court, by a judge, to come to therapy? You're going to accept the goal of getting better? No, you're just going to show up, do your time. And my goal as the therapist would be to try to talk you into making some use out of the time we spend together. So let's talk about applying this goal orientation theory in the classroom. We want to focus on meaningful aspects of learning activities. Design tasks that have novelty, that have variety, that are diverse, and that are good for a diverse population and different cultures and different interests. We want to design tasks that are challenging but reasonable in terms of students' capabilities, so that they will see them as a challenge rather than a threat, so that they will be more likely to want to master them, and so they will be more likely to approach them rather than avoid them. Provide opportunities for students to have some choice and control over the activities in the classroom. They're more likely to choose mastery and approach tasks. Focus on individual improvement, learning, progress, and mastery, a lot of it's about the teacher and what you say. I'm proud of the hard work you did. That promotes mastery. I'm proud of the A you got. That promotes performance. So this could be parents as well. Focus on the terms you use and how you speak to your students and trainees. Talk to them about the progress, their learning, their progress, their mastery. Strive to make evaluation private. We don't want it to be a public affair. This makes it an avoidance issue. Okay? It makes it more of a performance-based orientation. Recognize student effort rather than actual performance. Help students see mistakes as opportunities for learning. This is huge. Well, you can fix that next time. You had to learn sometime. I'm just glad you tried. Look at the effort you put in. Use heterogeneous, which means a variety of cooperative groups and a variety of different types of people to foster peer interaction. Use individual work to convey progress. Okay, so if we are going to use groups, we want to use different levels of ability within the groups and different types of people. We want this, and this would go back to that very first theory, self-determination theory. What was it? Autonomy, relatedness, and competence. This would give us relatedness. And then we want to always measure individual work. Use individual work to convey progress. Okay? Because often there will be one person in the group that is leaning on the other two. Adjust time on task requirements for students having trouble completing work. Allow students to plan work schedules and timelines for progress. The more autonomy and flexibility you can give to students, the better. Within reason, of course. All right, now we're going to talk about the sociocognitive theory of motivation. In this case, attribution theory. Was developed by Bernard Weiner. He was an educational psychologist like myself, and he came up with attribution theory. He focused a lot on emotions, responsibility, judgments, impression management, help giving, achievement, motivation. He had a PhD in psychology from the University of Michigan, University of California, LA. And attribution theory, it's hard to read this, but so if the coffee's good is what he's saying. If it's good, it's due to the Mr. Coffee. If it's bad, you're going to blame it on me. Okay? And this is often what we do. If I do well on the test, it's because I studied hard. If I do poorly on the test, it's because the test wasn't fair. That is an attribution. Think of, hold out your finger. Not if you're driving, but you can hold one finger out maybe. And when you point it at somebody, you're blaming somebody. It's rude to point, by the way. But you're blaming somebody. That is attributing somebody. And we can attribute good things to people or bad things to people. Hey, who cleaned the living room? Jim Bob. Awesome. Good job. Way to go. I'm attributing that completion, that success to Jim Bob. And we want to be attributed with good things, and we want to not be attributed with bad things. We want to internalize the attribution or the blame for good things that happen, and externalize the attribution or blame for bad things that happen. There's some more complexity to it, though. Explanations and justifications, beliefs and excuses all play a role in how we are motivated and how we behave. Okay? I believe certain things. I explain it certain ways. I have justifications and excuses. So what is the entity theory of intelligence? It means I'm born smart. I'm not going to get any smarter. Look at me. Okay, I don't know why I posted this picture. But what if you're not born smart and you go to school? If you believe in the entity theory of intelligence, what will you do at school? Will you try to learn? I'm not going to get any smarter. According to this theory of intelligence, if you hold this viewpoint, then there's no reason to try to learn. We cannot change how much intelligence we have. We cannot improve our grade on tests. We cannot study harder. We get the grade we get, and that is a true measure of how much our capacity is. It is stable. It will not change if I try harder. If the teacher tries harder, it will not help. It's uncontrollable. Now, incremental theory of intelligence is different. It is changeable. I can try harder. It is unstable. I may have a bad day. I may have a good day. It is controllable to some degree. Okay? If I put effort into this, I'll do well. If I don't, I will fail. So, see a lot of words here. This may be a good place for you to pause and just take some of this in. It's a lot of information. And Dweck is somebody's name, by the way. So we have the incremental theory, where intelligence can increase, and the entity theory, where intelligence is fixed. Entity theory leads to performance goals, whereas incremental theory leads to mastery goals. Now, both of these can lead to confidence in one's own ability. And if we don't have confidence, we avoid challenges, and we may lead to feelings of helplessness. But if we have the entity theory, it leads to performance goals, our outcome may reflect our ability. Okay. Now here's another chart. 3 dimensions of attributions, and this is probably the most important thing. Okay. Slides like this that are just full, I want you to slow down and take it in. This says uncontrollable. 3 dimensions of attributions. The locus, the stability, and the controllability. Locus is here, internal or external. Is it my fault, or is it somebody else's fault, or is it the weather? Okay. Is it stable or unstable? Okay. And one thing that's not listed here is whether it's controllable or not. Okay. So, I was sick on test day. External locus, stable. No, I won't always be sick, so it's unstable. Controllable? Nope, I could not control that. This helps me realize how much I actually am, quote, to blame for the grade I got, whether the grade actually reflects my true knowledge in the course. And as teachers and trainers, instructors, we want our students' grades to reflect how much they actually know. We want the locus to be appropriate. If it is internal, we want them to take responsibility. If it's an external source, like, man, that fire drill really, or it's been a horrible day for all of us, or, you know what, the teacher gave, and I've done this before, I've made a bad test before. And in doing so, I need my students to know this is not your fault, it's mine. The locus is mine. It's an external locus of control. It was my fault. Okay? Now, is it stable? Well, if you believe that it's an internal locus of control, it's always going to be that way, and you can't control it, and you fail, the outcome is failure, guess what? You're going to quit. You believe it's your fault, it's always going to be that way, you can't do anything about it. You're going to quit. You failed, you're going to quit. Now, put a success here. Internal, you feel good. Always going to be that way? Well, that's nice. Can't control it? Well, you don't get to experience as much pleasure about your success because you were not in control of it. Okay. So think about these three dimensions of attributions. Let's look at it this way. An unstable internal attribution would be, man, you put a lot of effort into it that time. Good job. An external unstable attribution would be, man, you got lucky at the poker table tonight. Okay. Stable and internal would be, you have a lot of ability, and your math skills are amazing. External and stable would mean I always give difficult tests, or it's always this hard. Okay, so let's see. Weiner's attribution theory. Success or failure attributed to external factors. It's going to be difficulty or luck. And they can be uncontrollable or controllable in all situations. If I attribute my success or failure to internal factors, it's due to ability or effort. Okay. What do we want? We want focus on effort. We want focus on difficulty. Okay. Attributional training. Method aimed at helping one gain awareness of how one's actions affect outcomes. It's really important for us to tell our students, here's what I think. Well, within reason. We want to be wise about how we word things, but we can really speak to students about, you know what, you're not stuck here. You're not stuck, in this entity view of intelligence. I believe you can improve if you put in more effort. Now, what's horrible is when a teacher has an entity view of intelligence. They believe their students cannot improve, even if the teacher tries harder or if the student tries harder. They try another approach. Next is self-efficacy. I encourage you to take a break if you have not done so this session. Just pause me and come back. Self-efficacy, I'm going to get to these four aspects that lead to the belief of self-efficacy. In short, self-efficacy is confidence in a specific future task. Okay. Beliefs about personal competence in a particular situation. So if I have high sense of self-efficacy towards something, but I don't put in a lot of effort, I believe I'll be successful next time. Low sense of self-efficacy, lack of ability though, apathy and depression. This really confirms my lack of confidence. How do students determine the causes of their successes and failures based on our actions? Think about that. What messages do you send as a teacher? It's really important that you coach your students to some degree. And this takes time. Time management is huge here because you cannot always spend one-on-one time with all your students. But just choosing the right phrase to tell each student as you give them their grade and feedback and what to do next or what you write on their test. The idea of learned helplessness, expectations based on previous experiences. If a person has failed repeatedly in the past, they will eventually expect to keep failing, and they will eventually quit trying. Effort will only lead to more failure. So learned helplessness, affective means emotion. Learned helplessness is at the center of our motivation, our thoughts, and our emotions. So, beliefs about self-worth. Mastery-oriented, failure-avoiding, or failure accepting. These will have also implications on our feelings of how worthy we are. Okay. If we avoid failure, we may not fail, but how will we feel about it? If we accept failure, depends on what we do with that. If we're mastery versus task oriented, that will change our view of our self-worth. Let's take a look. In terms of attitude, we have this idea, and it's a concept called fear of failure. Mastery-oriented have low fear of failure. I just want to learn as much as possible. Failure avoiding, high fear of failure. They're going to avoid it as much as possible. Failure accepting, I'm going to do it, but I'm going to fail. Goals. Mastery-oriented have learning goals. They're going to pick moderately difficult goals. Failure avoiding, these people are going to choose performance goals. Very hard or very easy. They want to impress people. Failure accepting people are going to choose performance goals or no goals at all. In terms of attributions, mastery-oriented people are able to attribute things to effort, to using the right strategy, to sufficient knowledge that has caused their success. When they avoid failure, they have a lack of ability that causes their failure. Same with failure accepting, lack of ability. It's all about ability. This is an entity view, as we see here. Whereas mastery-oriented is incremental and improvable views of intelligence and performance. In entity, it's fixed. Strategies. For mastery-oriented, we're going to have adaptive strategies. We're going to try another way if we fail the first time or if we don't get it just right. We're going to help get help, and we're going to practice and study more. With failure avoiding, we might use self-defeating strategies. Make a feeble effort. What I said earlier, procrastinating, pretend not to care, and have an excuse available. With failure accepting, often we have a history of failing, and we come to learn helplessness. We're likely to give up. A lot of information on this slide that is meant simply to put it together, as it says, what we've seen on previous slides. Mastery-oriented. These are high-need achievers. And we see that people have different levels of need for achievement. That's actually a word that we use in our field. High need for achievement, NFA. High need achievers are moderate risk takers. They will try something hard. They're not just going to try all the easy stuff every time. They're going to attempt tasks that are moderately difficult. They value achievement, incremental view of knowledge and intelligence. Ability can change and is improvable. They choose mastery goals, of course. Their outcome, if they pass, it's due to effort. If they fail, the attribution is, it's my fault. Maybe I was tired. Maybe I didn't put in enough effort. Maybe I got overwhelmed. But not stable factors. Because I have this incremental view, I can adapt and succeed next time. There is hope for these people. Okay? If I pass, I take credit for my effort, and my locus of control is internal either way. Now, if I'm failure avoiding or accepting, failure avoiding performance or no goals, I want to protect the self from failure or expect failure. I have a fixed or entity view of performance and intelligence. These are low need achievers. They don't have a need inside themselves to show that they can achieve a whole lot. They attempt easy, or why would I try a really hard task? Maybe So I can say, well, I tried the hardest one, of course I failed. So it's an excuse normally. Outcome, if they fail, well, it was just too difficult. Or avoiding challenges, self-defeating, helplessness. If I pass, man, I got lucky. Can't take credit for it, you just got lucky. It leads to an external locus of control. This is not good for our students. This does not help them build. Okay, and that's what we want. Students that are motivated, or at least volitional at first, and gain inertia through success. And of course, it influences their beliefs about self-worth, behaviors that block student success in order to avoid testing their true ability. Okay. Lastly, self-regulation. The ability to control all aspects of one's learning, from advanced planning, planning ahead, to how one evaluates performance afterward. This is the process of activating and sustaining our thoughts, our behaviors, and our emotions in order to reach goals. This is saying, I'm tired, but I'm going to keep working. This is saying, I need to change my approach. High-achieving students are more likely to be self-regulated. Self-regulated is a key term you want to know, and it's something you want to see in yourself as a student and in your own students and trainees. Self-regulated learning can be thought to include three things: knowledge about yourself and the learning tasks, what's expected, the subject and strategies for performing, your motivation to learn, whether the task is interesting, and why you're actually doing it, and then volition, which I've mentioned, the willpower, the self-discipline, putting the phone away, turning Facebook wherever you put it, away from your eyes, and using work styles that protect opportunities to reach goals. And this is not about I have the energy, but this is all about willpower. I think is the key word here. This is self-regulated learning. So we start with analyzing the task. What's the task ahead of me? Some of you have had big tasks in life, some of you have not. I've had to do many huge projects in my life, and some of you have as well. When we look at a task, hopefully we stop and look at it. We do some pre-planning. We look at the task features. What is it about? What sources are available? We look at our personal features as well. What knowledge can I apply? What do I have to bring to the table? What is the value of this task to me? Then we set some goals. What is my learning goal orientation? Do I want to master it, or do I just want to perform? What consequences accompany various outcomes? Well, if I master it, will anybody even know? Because that may matter. What effort is required? Do I have time to show that amount of effort? If I'm doing something at the last minute, my boss gives me a project I don't have time to do, I'm not going to master it, I'm going to perform. Okay. We're going to devise our plan after we set our goal. Have I participated in similar tasks before? If so, I may use some of those strategies. What are steps to complete the task? What learning skills will be useful? How will I monitor my progress? Is feedback, not Facebook, is feedback available as my work proceeds? Then we put those strategies and tactics into action, retrieve our prior knowledge, we think back and we use it. Examine our given operation. We apply our cognitive operations, any knowledge we have. We monitor our outcomes, keep track of it. I'm doing well, look at that. And we make sure that we don't overwhelm ourselves. That's managing our cognitive load. Finally, we have regulated learning, where we can think about our own process, metacognitive monitoring, our own process of learning, and then we can change how we did it. If we did start to feel overwhelmed, we might choose a different tactic in the future. Okay. Here's the self-regulation model. And you see that it's reciprocal as well and interactive. Start with the forethought phase, task analysis and self-beliefs, down to the performance phase, self-control and self-monitoring. Self-reflection phase involves self-evaluation and self-imposed contingencies. Again, before the response, during the response, after the response. So what are these things? Self-determined goals and standards. The student or the learner needs to determine the goals to be achieved and standards for behavior. It's really not about what the teacher says. The student gets to choose whether they follow what the teacher says or not. It's always up to the student. During the response, in other words, performing the task, the performance phase. Students observe and monitor their own performance. I'm running too slow. I'm running too fast. I'm doing good work, whatever that may be. And they might give themselves new instructions, either aloud, quietly. They might say, you know what, I need to speed up. You know what, I need to be neater. They're going to talk to themselves about how they're doing. And once they've finished, they're going to evaluate what they've done. Students judge the quality of their performance. Say I did good, bad, but it'll be more complicated than that. Self-imposed contingencies. Students impose their own consequences for success or failure. It's not just for somebody else. Self-regulation is really for the mastery-oriented individual. They're going to be happy with how much they've learned, or happy or unhappy. They will have their own sort of evaluation, regardless of whether they got an A, B, C, or D. Some students can get a C in a course and be happy. For them, that is a success. So how do we make self-regulation something we see in the classroom? We emphasize the value of encouragement. We model it, self-regulation. We make families a source of good strategy ideas. And we provide self-evaluation guidelines. The fourth one is probably my favorite. We can teach students to self-evaluate. Okay. We can teach them to self-regulate, and we can show them always how we did it. As a teacher, sometimes I mess up. Sometimes I realize I'm messing up while I'm teaching a course. I have a course all planned out, study plans for every class, and I realize this is not getting the students' attention. This is not motivating them. Or it's motivating them, but they're not performing at the level that they need to. What do? I change my tactic. And maybe I even tell them, you know what, I realized we need a new strategy in this class. I'm going to make some changes. I model for my students self-regulation. So social learning, and just something I want to add, expectancy value theory. First, we're going to talk about the social view of learning. Albert Bandura was a Canadian psychologist. He got his PhD in 1952 from University of Iowa. He also worked at Stanford, president of the American Psychological Association. And he studies a lot of what we call social and cognitive theory. He's famous for the Bobo doll experiments. If you're not familiar with them, you might YouTube them, look them up. Has to do with watching someone perform a behavior, get reinforced or punished, and then learning from watching somebody else whether we want to perform the same action. People learn from observing the behavior of others, observing the environmental outcomes of the behavior of others. This is called observational learning. So, we need to be careful that we know what students are watching us do as teachers. Are we exhibiting the things we tell them? Well, of course, if they're observing us, they're likely to mimic our behavior. We serve as models for our students. Okay, so there's an environmental component, teachers, parents, and peers. A personal component, self-efficacy, outcome, expectancy, and attributions, all concepts you should be familiar with. And the behavior component, physical, persistence, effort, emotional. Physical is persistence and effort, emotional is anger and pride. Okay, and you see how these can lead to one another with teachers and parents and peers moderating the other two. The behavior component is reciprocal with the personal component, where environmental component is outside, affecting both behavior and the personal component. So let's take a closer look at personal beliefs. Self-efficacy has a lot to do with what you expect from your outcome, right? Because that's what it is. It is a belief, a level of confidence about a specific future task. Now, we often think of confidence as a general confidence. That man walks with confidence. Would you look at that? But self-efficacy is about a specific thing. Can you make an A on this test? Can you make $1 million? Can you do a specific thing? The self system serves a self-regulatory function by providing individuals with the capability to alter their environments and influence their own actions. The beliefs that people have about themselves are key elements in the exercise of control and personal agency. Agency is just another word for who is in control. Influences on self-efficacy. We saw these earlier, way earlier. If you want to come back to it. Here. Okay, influences. The choices individuals make, the courses of actions they pursue, how much effort people will expend on any activity, and how long they will persevere when confronting obstacles. How resilient they will be in the face of adverse situations. Think about that. What choices do you make? Do you try the hard route or the easier one? How much effort do you put into things? Of course, it depends on the activity. How long will you persevere when there's an obstacle? Some of you are hard-headed, I imagine, like me. How resilient will you be when things get tough? Perceived self-efficacy is a powerful predictor of success. We have found that over and over again in educational environments that self-efficacy, in other words, my belief about my own abilities, not my actual abilities, but my belief about them, is a predictor of how well I will do. Before age 10, self-efficacy, we think of effort is the same as competence and ability and intelligence. If you work hard enough, you can do anything and you're good at it. In younger years, we tend to have this incremental view that we give to people. Young children have normally no concept of limitations or varying ability levels. Bandura had the concept of self-efficacy. And you may want to look back at the previous model. But our views on self-efficacy are motivated or influenced by really 4 different things. How I feel physiologically, do I have goosebumps, and how I interpret those goosebumps. Does that mean I'm scared? Oh no, I'm scared. I probably won't do it. Or these goosebumps mean I'm excited. Okay. Is someone telling me I can do a good job? If they are, I'm more likely to believe it. My self-efficacy is likely to rise. If I've had a mastery experience or an active influence, a mastery experience of my own, successful outcomes increase positive judgments. Of course, if I've been successful before, I can be successful again. I have higher self-efficacy. Or something very similar, if I've seen somebody else, well, Jim Bob over here, he did it, so I bet I can. If we see somebody else succeed, we're likely to compare ourselves with the other and say, I bet I can do it too. Clearly specify the behaviors that are being reinforced or punished. Provide clear feedback for student-specific behaviors. Be aware of observational learning. Make sure that students create an environment, and you as a teacher create an environment where expectations are met consistently. Go beyond the examination and evaluation of students' behavior, and pay attention to their self-belief system. Talk to them about what they're saying to themselves, because it's not just about the first test, it's about test 2, test 3, test 4, and understand that if you're a 3rd grade teacher, you're affecting grades 4, 5, 6, college, graduate school possibilities. So sociocognitive theory has its roots in behaviorism. It includes concepts from cognitive views of learning. Learning is the relatively enduring change in the mental structures of a learner that create the potential to demonstrate different behaviors. This emphasizes our social environment. Learning can occur even when there is no direct interaction with the environment, though. So unique aspects of observational learning are this vicarious learning we speak of. Learning by observing, that's pretty cool. We can be vicariously reinforced if we see somebody else getting a piece of candy for something they did, or vicariously punished. We're less likely to do behavior if we see somebody do something and they get yelled at or punished in some way. Inactive learning means a mastery experience. I have succeeded in this before. That's a direct experience. It's like a vicarious experience, but it's direct rather than indirect. Learning only creates the potential to demonstrate different behaviors. It does not mean for sure that we will show those new behaviors. Modeling is very important, especially in sociocognitive theory. There's the cognitive, affective, and behavioral changes that result from observing others' behaviors and explanations. We often have live models, people showing us, teachers, coaches, people on television, and then there are symbolic models, people or even things we look up to, maybe a cartoon character, Superman, somebody that may not actually be doing the tasks that we're doing, but has shown resilience, has shown persistence, has shown that they will do everything they have in them to be successful. And these symbolic models can also be motivating. What do you want to model in your classroom? Right? You need to think about that. What do you want to model in your classroom? As you learn these theories, please take note. Remind yourself just little tips of things you want to do to teach your students the process of learning that will help give them the best possibility of success for the rest of their life. Modeling effects can be inhibitory modeling or disinhibitory. Response facilitation effects is the cue to engage in the behavior. Factors for successful modeling. Learner processing, how we think, attention, retention, production, and motivation. And then also, I would say this is probably the one, I moved quickly through the inhibitory to disinhibitory. I'm not going to focus on that. I want you to focus on the model characteristics. I think this is really important as I'm teaching you. Power and prestige of the model has a lot to do with it. Who do they get to advertise products that they want to sell? Well, famous people. Are they likely to believe a teacher that knows, that has a PhD? Hopefully a little more. You're going to get health advice from your sister or the doctor. No. There are characteristics that a model may have that can increase the chances that we will follow their lead. If we perceive them as powerful, prestigious, if we perceive them as competent, if we perceive them as similar to ourselves. This is one reason that it's really good to relate to students, to give them stories that make sense to them in their own language. And by that, I don't mean English. I mean, if they are northerners in an industrial area, you may want to use examples that have to do with industry. If they are farmers, you may want to use examples that have to do with farming. Task difficulty is an issue. Cognitive modeling for highly complex, challenging, or unfamiliar tasks. We want to explain why the to-be learned skill is important. We want to model the procedure entirely. We want to model each step separately using different contexts. Have students practice the procedure with guidance. Have the students practice the entire procedure with guidance. And have students practice the entire procedure without guidance. This is how we model. We explain the importance. We model the procedure for them. We show them every step all together. And then we do it one at a time. Here's this step. Here's this step. Here's this step and this step. And then we're going to have the students do that back for us. I want you to practice one step at a time, broken down. Try step 1, try step 2, 3, 4, etc. And then now I want you to try them all together. I'm going to be helping you. And at this point, number 6 should be the culmination, having students practice the entire procedure without any help. Motivation is a combination, according to this theory, of our expectancy and our value. Do you expect to be successful? And do you value that success? This has to do with expectancy, values, and emotions. So, our beliefs matter. whether we expect that we are capable, our expectations for success, our responsibility, these all play a role in expectancy. So, then values, the importance, whether it's going to be useful, whether we're interested in it, whether the effort is worth the outcome. And then overall, our feelings about our academic tasks, our emotions play a role. Expectancy, again, is our perceived chance of success. Students will base their beliefs of possible goal attainment and success on personal ability and external circumstances. Prior history of success and failure at a task, our self-efficacy, has a strong influence on our outcome expectancy. Affect expectancy is our emotional expectancy, perceived difficulty of a task, availability of resources and support, how scared or comfortable we feel, quality of instruction, the amount of effort necessary to complete a given task. This is going back to the ARCS model. This would be instilling confidence in our students. Overall, the idea is that you can sort of multiply, not that you're using any actual figures, but it's the product of our expectations and how much we value the outcome that leads to some measure of how motivated we are to reach our goal successfully. High expectation, high value leads to positive motivation. Low expectation, low value leads to negative motivation. And then we might have a moderate motivation produced from high expectation and low value, or low expectation but high value. Having no expectancy for success, even with high value for obtaining success, we're just going to not even try. We're not going to be motivated. Why should I bother if I can't get it? Even if I'd really love to be a doctor, if I just have absolutely no belief that I can do it, I'm not going to try. In contrast, if I believe I can do it, but I just don't care, I don't value it at all, I will not be motivated to perform the task. Having high expectancy for success, but no value for obtaining success, leads to no motivation. I could get it, but why should I bother if I don't want it? Okay, I'll be back with you shortly for behavioral views of learning. Thank you.